The rain hammered against the windshield like accusations unspoken, blurring the neon signs of the interstate into watery ghosts as Robert gripped the steering wheel tighter, his knuckles white as bone. Beside him, Samuel stared out at the storm-swept Ohio landscape, his heart pounding not from the thunder, but from the finality of his father's words an hour earlier. This is for your own good. Son, Elias will fix what's broken in you. In that moment, as the truck's wipers slashed back the downpour, Samuel felt the world crack open not with anger, but with a grief so deep it stole his breath. Knowing this drive to Pennsylvania wasn't a journey home, but an exile from the boy he'd always been. Robert glanced sideways, his jaw set like the rusted beams of the steel mill where he'd spent 30 years forging a life from scrap. At 48, he was a man built from the grit of Youngstown, Ohio, where dreams rusted faster than the mills themselves. Samuel, his only child at 22, was the light he'd poured every overtime shift into, a scholarship kid with a poet's soul trapped in a mechanic's hands. But lately, that light had twisted into something Robert couldn't name, couldn't fix with a wrench or a prayer. The whispers from church friends, the way Samuel's eyes lingered too long on the wrong boys at the county fair, had all coiled in Robert's gut like barbed wire. Elias, his old army buddy from basic training in the 90s, had been his lifeline. "I was like you once," Elias had said over the phone last month, his voice steady as gospel. "Lost in the dark. But God pulled me out. Send the boy to me. I'll show him the path." It was a promise, a brotherhood forged in foxholes and Fox News, and Robert clung to it like salvation itself. They pulled off at a roadside diner just past midnight, the kind of place where truckers nursed black coffee and regrets under flickering fluorescence. Samuel slid into the booth first, his backpack stuffed with dog-eared paperbacks and a single photo of his late mother thudding against the vinyl seat. Robert ordered eggs he wouldn't eat, pushing the plate toward his son as if food could mend the rift widening between them. "Elias is a good man," Robert said, his voice rough from cigarettes and unspoken fears. "He runs a center up in the hills. Helps folks like..." "Well, you know." Samuel's fork scraped the plate, the sound sharper than his reply. "Like me? You mean gay? Dad. Say it." The word hung there, heavy as the storm outside, and Robert flinched as if struck. He'd raised Samuel on Sundays in the pews of First Baptist, teaching him to pray away storms and sins alike. But this was a tempest no verse could calm. The drive resumed in silence, broken only by the radio's static-laced hymns, each mile pulling Samuel further from the life he'd known. He thought of the summer before college, when he'd first kissed Tommy under the bleachers at the high school football game, a stolen moment of fireworks and fear that ended with Tommy's family moving away overnight. Samuel had buried it deep, telling himself it was a phase, a glitch in the wiring. But then came the emails, the late-night confessions to online strangers, and finally, the night he'd come out to Robert over cold takeout Chinese. His father's face had crumpled not in rage, but in a devastation that cut deeper, disappointment. As if Samuel had chosen this despite the man who'd given him everything. "We fix it," Robert had whispered then, tears carving tracks through his stubble. "We pray. We fight." And now, here they were, fighting not against the world, but against the very heart of who Samuel was. By dawn, the hills of central Pennsylvania rose like weary sentinels, mist clinging to their folds as the truck crested the final ridge. Elias's home appeared like a beacon or a cagey, a modest cabin nestled among pines, with a sign out front reading, "Pathway to Wholeness Retreat." Robert killed the engine, the sudden quiet amplifying the knot in Samuel's throat. Elias emerged from the porch, his frame lean from years of discipline, his smile warm but edged with the fervor of a man who'd stared down his own demons. At 50, he carried the quiet authority of someone who'd traded chaos for clarity, his blue eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Robert, my brother," he said, clasping hands in a grip that spoke of battles shared and burdens lifted. Then his gaze shifted to Samuel, softening with what might have been pity or promise. "And you must be the young warrior. Welcome home." Samuel stepped out, the gravel crunching under his sneakers like brittle bones. The air smelled of damp earth and pine sap, a far cry from the sulfur tang of Youngstown's mills. He wanted to run back to the truck, back to the life where his secrets were his alone, but Robert's hand on his shoulder anchored him. "He's yours now, Elias," Robert said, his voice cracking for the first time. "Make him whole." Elias nodded, that steady assurance Robert had banked on, and led Samuel inside while Robert lingered by the truck, engine idling like a getaway he couldn't take. As the door clicked shut behind them, Samuel felt the first fracture, not in his resolve, but in the illusion that love could be conditional. Inside, the cabin breathed simplicity, wooden beams overhead, a stone fireplace crackling with fresh logs, shelves lined with Bibles and recovery journals. Elias poured coffee into mismatched mugs, the steam rising like fragile hopes. "Your dad told me a bit," he began, settling into an armchair that sagged with use. "About the confusion, the pull toward shadows." Samuel sipped the bitter brew, his eyes tracing the faded tattoos peeking from Elias's sleeve, army ink from a youth wilder than the man before him now. "It's not confusion," Samuel replied, his voice steadier than he felt. "It's me. Always has been." Elias leaned forward, his expression a blend of empathy and unyielding faith. "I said the same once. Back in '95, after discharge. Nights in bars, chasing ghosts. Thought it was who I was born to be. But God showed me different. Therapy, prayer, community. It works. Samuel. It saved me." The first days blurred into a rhythm of enforced normalcy. Mornings began with sunrise hikes through the woods, Elias quoting psalms as birdsong pierced the canopy. "See the order here," he'd say, gesturing to the interlocking roots of ancient oaks. "God's design. No chaos. No deviation." Samuel nodded, his boots sinking into mud that mirrored the mire in his chest. Afternoons were for sessions in the retreat's small chapel, a converted shed with stained glass windows depicting prodigal sons returning home. Elias would guide him through exercises, journaling temptations, reciting affirmations of purity, visualizing a future with a wife, kids, the white picket fence of American dreams. "You're not broken, son," Elias would affirm, his hand on Samuel's shoulder, a weight both comforting and confining. "You're just lost, but the path is straight." Nights were the hardest, when the cabin's walls seemed to close in. Samuel lay on his cot, staring at the slanted ceiling, the wind whispering through cracks like his mother's voice, soft, encouraging. Gone too soon to cancer when he was 12. She'd have understood, he thought, her hugs fierce and unquestioning. Robert had hardened after that, building walls of silence where laughter once echoed. Samuel's phone, confiscated on arrival, had been his only tether to the world outside. Now, he traced memories in the dark. The way Tommy's laugh had lit the summer dusk. The poetry he'd scribbled in hidden notebooks. Verses of longing that no prayer could erase. Doubt crept in, not of his identity, but of escape. Elias watched him like a hawk, kind but vigilant, as if one wrong glance at the horizon might shatter the fragile progress. One evening, after a particularly grueling group session with other seekers, men with haunted eyes and halting testimonies, Elias pulled Samuel aside. The fire popped in the hearth, casting shadows that danced like unspoken truths. "Tell me about the first time," Elias said, his voice low. Intimate. The spark that led you here. Samuel hesitated, the words bubbling up like bile. He spoke of the fair, the bleachers, the kiss that tasted of cotton candy and courage. Elias listened, nodding, but something flickered in his eye, a shadow of recognition. Quickly doused. I know that fire, he murmured. Felt it burn me alive once. But look at me now. Married 15 years. 2 boys. Proof it's possible. Samuel wanted to believe him, to grasp that lifeline his father had thrown. But as Elias spoke of his wife, his voice softened in a way that spoke not of passion, but of performance, a quiet heroism masking a deeper ache. Weeks turned to a month. The leaves shifting from green to gold as autumn etched its urgency into the hills. Samuel's body thinned, his cheeks hollowing from sparse meals and sleepless nights. But his spirit sharpened, honed by resistance. He'd sneak moments alone by the creek, skipping stones into the current, each plunk a rebellion. I'm not a project, he'd whisper to the water. The words a mantra against the mirrors Elias made him face literally. During affirmation walks, where he'd repeat, I am a man of God, straight and true. The lie tasted like ash, and Samuel choked on it, tears blurring the path ahead. Robert called weakly, his voice tinny through the landline Elias monitored. How's it going, son? Feeling the change. Samuel forced brightness, tales of hikes and hymns. But each goodbye twisted the knife. He pictured his father in the empty house, staring at Samuel's high school portrait, the one where he smiled wide and unburdened. Robert had sacrificed everything over time shifts, second mortgages for that boy's future. To learn it was tainted, twisted. It wasn't hatred driving him. Samuel knew. It was terror. Terror of a world that judged fathers by their sons' sins. I love you, Dad. Samuel would end, the words a bridge fraying thread by thread. Elias, too, began to unravel, though Samuel saw it only in glimpses. Late one night, he found his mentor in the chapel, kneeling before the cross, shoulders shaking not from prayer, but sobs. What haunts you? Samuel asked, slipping in like a shadow. Elias wiped his face, forcing a smile. Old ghosts. Nothing a good verse can't chase. But the next day, during a rare, unguarded moment over lunch, Elias shared a fragment, his own youth in rural Virginia. The summer of '92, when he'd fallen for a fellow recruit named Jamie. Stolen glances in the barracks. A fumbled touch under starlit skies. Discharged for conduct unbecoming. Elias said, voice flat. Came home a wreck. That's when the church found me. The program. It worked. Samuel pressed, sensing the crack. Did it? Or did you just bury it? Elias's eyes darkened, the firelight catching the doubt he'd long suppressed. As winter nipped at the edges of fall, the retreat's isolation began to mirror the chasm in Samuel's soul. He dreamed of escapee hitchhiking back to Ohio, confronting Robert with the raw truth of his heart. But Elias's stories wove a web of hope laced with despair, tales of men who'd relapsed, lost families, ended in shadows darker than the ones they'd fled. Don't be that statistic, Elias urged during their deepest session yet, voices echoing in the empty chapel. Samuel broke then, not in defeat, but defiance. I'm not a statistic. I'm Samuel. And this loving who I love is in a relapse. It's my truth. The words hung, electric. And for the first time, Elias didn't counter with scripture. Instead, he sat silent, the weight of decades pressing down. That night, thunder rolled in from the west, shaking the cabin like divine unrest. Samuel couldn't sleep, the storm mirroring the tempest within. He rose, padding to the kitchen for water, only to find Elias at the table. An old photo album open under the dim bulb. The pages yellowed with time, young Elias in fatigues. Arms slung around a laughing Jamie. Their faces alight with a joy unmarred by judgment. He wrote me after. Elias whispered, not looking up as Samuel approached. Said he couldn't pretend anymore. Moved to San Francisco. Last I heard. He's married to a man. Happy. The confession spilled then. A dam breaking after years of reinforcement. Elias spoke of the program in the 90s electric shocks for arousal. Endless counseling that twisted love into shame. I graduated top of my class. He said bitterly. Married Sarah because she was kind. Steady. But every night, I see his face. Wonder what I threw away. Samuel sank into the chair opposite. The revelation a lifeline in the dark. Then why? He asked, voice trembling. Why do this to me? To us. Elias's hands shook as he closed the album. Because your dad. He saved me once. After Jamie. Pulled me from the bottle. Got me to church. I owed him. Thought if I could save you. It'd save me to prove it all meant something. Tears carved paths down his lined face. The mighty ex-gay crumbling into the man he'd entombed. Samuel reached across. Their hands clasping in a grip born of shared wounds. For the first time since arriving, he felt seen not as a project, but as kin in exile. Dawn broke gray and unforgiving. The storm's remnants dripping from the eaves as Samuel and Elias packed the truck Robert had left behind. No dramatic flight, just a quiet pact, forged in the night's confessions. Elias called Robert first, his voice steady now, laced with a freedom long denied. The boy's coming home. Rob. But not fixed. Changed maybe you too. Robert's response was silence. Then a choked. What have you done? Elias didn't flinch. Told the truth. About him. About me. About us. He hung up, turning to Samuel with eyes clear for the first time. Drive. I'll navigate. The road back wound through frost-kissed valleys. The cab filled with tentative talk stories swapped like balm on burns. Elias shared more, the letters from Jamie he'd burned. The prayers that turned to pleas for release. Samuel spoke of his own fierce off a world that preached love but wielded rejection like a blade. Dad's not a monster, he said softly. Just scared. Like we were. Elias nodded, the miles melting the ice between them. By nightfall, they crossed into Ohio, the mill town's lights flickering like hesitant welcomes. Robert waited on the porch, silhouette etched against the glow from within. A shotgun propped nearby not in threat, but habit from years guarding what was his. Samuel stepped out first, heart hammering. Elias a quiet sentinel behind. Dad, Samuel began, voice raw. Robert's eyes, red-rimmed, flicked from son to friend, the pieces falling into place with agonizing clarity. Elias. You. The question cracked, laden with betrayal and buried knowing. Elias stepped forward. No armor left. Yeah. Rob. Me. Always was. The program's a Leah cage we build for ourselves. Robert staggered back, the weight of it crashing down, the buddy he'd idolized. The salvation he'd chased. All ash. What followed wasn't fury, but fracturing a father's world splintering under truths too long ignored. Robert sank to the steps, head in hands, sobs racking his frame. I did this. To you. To him. Samuel knelt beside him, the touch tentative at first, then fierce. You tried to love me your way. Now try mine. Elias watched, tears silent. The trio bound now not by denial, but dawning grace. Hours stretched into a vigil of words, apologies unearthed like fossils. Regrets laid bare under the porch light. Robert spoke of his own youth. A fleeting crush on a mill co-worker dismissed as just boys being boys. Thought I could save you from that. He whispered. Didn't see I was running from myself. Spring unfurled slow in Youngstown. The mills groaning back to life as the men rebuilt theirs. Samuel returned to community college. His poetry now laced with light. Not shadow verses read at open mics to crowds that leaned in. Not away. Elias stayed on, renting the spare room. His retreat dismantled, replaced by letters to Jamie that bridged decades of silence. Robert retired early on a settlement from the mill. Volunteered at the local LGBTQ center. His rough hands gentle with pamphlets and listening ears. I broke us, he'd say to newcomers. Voice steady, but truth men stronger. One June evening, as fireflies danced in the yard like liberated stars, the three gathered for a meal simple spaghetti, laughter threading through the steam. Samuel raised his glass, eyes shining, to paths not straight, but true. Robert clinked, his smile cracked but real, to sons who teach fathers to bend. Elias, Jamie's photo now framed on the mantel, added softly, and friends who finally come home. In that moment, under the vast American sky, they weren't fixed or flawless, just whole, woven from the beautiful wreckage of what had been. The storm had passed, leaving not ruin, but roots deep enough to weather any wind. The summer heat clung to Youngstown like a fever dream, turning the air thick with the scent of blooming mock orange and distant steel smoke. Samuel woke each morning to the hum of his father's ancient Ford in the driveway. Robert off to the center before dawn, his flannel shirts now bearing rainbow pins he'd pinned on with trembling fingers. At 22, Samuel felt the weight of new beginnings like a second skin loose. Unfamiliar, but his. College classes resumed in earnest. Literature seminars where he dissected Whitman not in secret shame, but open wonder. His voice gaining strength with each recitation. I sing the body electric, he'd quote. And for the first time, the words sang back to him. Electric with possibility. Elias had become a fixture, his presence a quiet revolution in the modest ranch house. Mornings found him in the kitchen, flipping pancakes with a precision born of army days. His laughter lighter now, unburdened by the mask he'd worn for decades. Jamie's letters arrived weekly, postmarked from a sun-drenched address in the Castro Vibrant. Teasing missives that coaxed Elias into smiles Samuel had rarely seen. He's coming east in the fall, Elias confided one afternoon over iced tea on the back stoop, the sun gilding his graying hair. Wants to meet the man I became, or the one I'm becoming. Samuel grinned, clapping his shoulder. Tell him we're all works in progress. Dad's proof. Robert's transformation was the slowest burn. A man of iron while learning the alchemy of vulnerability. At the center, he'd started a support group for parents, fathers, and sons, bridging the gap, his gravelly voice sharing stories that drew nods and tears from strangers turned kin. I sent my boy away thinking love meant control. He'd begin, eyes distant. Came back with a mirror I couldn't shatter. Evenings, he'd tinker in the garage, not with engines anymore, but wood carving small figures of intertwined hands, symbols of the bonds he'd nearly severed. Samuel found one on his nightstand one night, two palms pressed together, rough-hewn but tender. For the poet. The note read, in Robert's blocky script. Samuel traced the grain, tears blurring the edges, and slipped it into his journal. Yet fractures lingered, hairline cracks in the rebuilt foundation. Samuel's first Dadia coffee meetup with Alex, a soft-spoken artist from the poetry slam unraveled Robert's fragile piece. He's nice, Dad, Samuel said over dinner that night, casual as recounting a shift at the bookstore. Robert's fork paused midair, his face paling beneath the tan of summer labor. Nice. Right. The word hung, laced with the echo of old fears. Elias, sensing the storm, steered the talk to baseball. The Pirates' slim playoff hopes a safer harbor. But later, as Samuel washed dishes, Robert cornered him by the sink. Just be careful, son. World still got teeth. Samuel dried his hands, meeting his father's gaze pleading. Protective. I know, but hiding won't dull him. The tension simmered through July's haze, culminating in a backyard barbecue Robert hosted for the center's volunteer-set tentative olive branch. Tables groaned under potato salad and ribs, laughter bubbling like beer foam as stories swapped under string lights. Elias arrived with Jamie's photo tucked in his pocket like a talisman, his eyes scanning the crowd with a mix of nerves and anticipation. Samuel mingled, Alex at his side, their fingers brushing in silent solidarity. But Robert hovered at the grill, tongs gripped like a lifeline, his smiles tight as he flipped burgers. It was midway through, as dusk painted the sky in bruised purples, that the past intruded uninvited. Old man Hargrove from church face like weathered leather. Bible ever at hand clapped Robert on the back, voice booming. Heard your boys doing better. That retreat worked wonders. Praise be. The yard fell into a hush, forks clinking to a stop. Samuel froze, Alex's hand tightening on his. Robert's face drained of color, the tongs clattering to the ground. Elias stepped forward, calm as a mediator in a minefield. Actually, Hargrove, it didn't. Sam's exactly who he is, brave. Brilliant. And that's the real praise. Hargrove sputtered, eyes darting like cornered prey. But the good book, Robert cut him off. Voice low thunder. The book says love your neighbor. Means family too. Sam's my heart. End of story. The words landed like a gauntlet, and Hargrove slunk away, mumbling retreats. The party exhaled, cheers rising as someone cranked the radio Springsteen belting Born to Run, an anthem for outcasts. Samuel pulled Robert aside, hugging him fierce. Thanks, Dad. That was everything. Robert held on, whispering into his son's hair. No more sending you away. Promise. August brought cooler winds, whispering of change as leaves edged toward amber. Samuel's poetry found a voice in a local anthology. His piece, Exile's Return, a raw elegy to the hills that had nearly claimed him. Readings drew crowds, Alex's sketches illustrating the chapbook with lines of intertwined figures, bold and unapologetic. Elias, meanwhile, planned his reunion, a train ticket booked, heart racing at the thought of Jamie's laugh after 30 years. What if he sees the cracks? He confided to Samuel during a walk by the Mahoning River, water murmuring secrets to the banks. Samuel stopped, turning him gently. Cracks let the light in. Elias, that's how we heal. Robert's group grew. Fathers like him, mill workers, teachers, vets gathering in the center's basement, folding chairs creaking under shared weights. One night, after a particularly wrenching share from a man who'd lost his son to silence, Robert drove home in tears, pulling into the driveway where Samuel and Elias waited with porch lights on. Heard a dad today? Robert choked out. Say he wished he'd listened sooner. Like me. They enveloped him then. A huddle against the autumn chill. Words weaving a tapestry of forgiveness. You're listening now, Samuel said. That's the win. As Labor Day approached, the town buzzed with fair preparations the same midway where Samuel's world had first tilted. He convinced Robert and Elias to join. Cotton candy and carousel spins a defiant reclaiming. Under the Ferris wheel's glow, Samuel spotted Tommy's family booth, the boy himself manning the ring toss. Broader now, eyes widening in recognition. Sam, Tommy called, voice bridging years. They talked haltingly at first, college tales. Small town escapes, then deeper. Under the Barker's call. Missed this, Tommy admitted, glancing at Alex nearby. You? Samuel nodded, glancing at his father laughing with Elias over funnel cake. More than I knew. The wheel creaked to its peak that night. Samuel and Alex in one car. Robert and Elias in another below. From on high, Samuel saw the sprawl of lights, the mill's dark sentinels. The river a silver thread, and felt the pull of time's relentless current. Below, Robert leaned toward Elias. Their heads close. Words lost to the wind, but gestures clear, a hand on a knee. A nod of old kinship renewed. They're finding their way, Alex murmured, lacing fingers with Samuel. Like us. The descent was gentle, landing in a world remade, not perfect, but possible. Fall deepened, leaves carpeting the streets in crimson confessions. Samuel's anthology launch packed the bookstore. Readings met with snaps and embraces. His voice steady as he closed with lines of homecoming, from fractures. We forged / not fixes, but flights. Robert stood at the back, eyes proud and wet. Elias beside him. Jamie's latest Lettera plane ticket stub folded in his pocket. Go? Robert urged later, clapping Elias's back. Live it. Elias hugged him fierce. Couldn't without you, brother. Winter's first snow fell as Elias boarded the train west. Samuel and Robert waving from the platform. Scarves whipping in the gusts. Letters flew back like snowflakes, tales of San Francisco's hills. Jamie's hand in his. A life deferred no more. Tell Dad. One read. He's the real hero. Samuel did. Over Christmas ham. The table laden with stories. Robert raised his glass, voice thick, to truths that break us open, and the grace to mend. In the new year, Samuel proposed to Alex under the same bleachers. Ring simple as a vow. Robert walked him down the aisle that spring. Suit starched, eyes shining as vows echoed in the community hall. Elias flew in with Jamie. Their presence a quiet affirmation. Hands clasped throughout. Broke to build. Elias whispered to Robert during the dance. Old friends swaying to a slow waltz. Robert nodded, pulling Samuel close after. Wouldn't trade the scars. Years wove on. Threads of joy and quiet storms. Samuel taught poetry to mill kids. Alex's murals blooming on factory walls. Robert's group became a lifeline across counties. His carved hands now steady with purpose. Elias and Jamie visited Summers. Their home a haven of second chances. And in the heart of it, Samuel knew the send-off hadn't fixed him, it had freed them all. Truths blooming from the beautiful ruin of what once was. Spring rains softened the edges of Youngstown once more, washing away winter's grime to reveal the town's resilient pulse. Samuel, now 23, balanced wedding plans with a budding freelance gig host, writing memoirs for the center's elders. Their stories of hidden lives a mirror to his own. Alex's apartment above the bookstore became their nest. Walls papered in sketches and sonnets. Nights filled with laughter that chased shadows. But beneath the idol, Samuel carried a quiet vigil, watching Robert, whose smiles sometimes faltered at family gatherings. Eyes drifting to empty chairs where old church friends once sat. Elias's visits from the coast brought sea salt breezes in his wake. Jamie, a warm counterpoint tall, with a sailor's easy grin and eyes that crinkled like well-worn maps. Your boys got your fire, Rob, Jamie said one evening over backyard beers, clapping Robert's shoulder as Samuel grilled. Robert chuckled, but the sound held a hitch. Memories of foxholes and unspoken longings surfacing like bubbles in the brew. Fire's what got us here, he replied, glancing at Samuel and Alex entwined on the porch swing. Burn hot, but lit the way. The wedding day dawned crisp. May flowers nodding in the breeze as guests filled the hall, a tapestry of flannel and feathers. Mill hands beside activists. Hymns giving way to heartfelt toasts. Samuel stood at the altar in a suit tailored simple. Heart full as Alex walked down. Bouquet of wild asters trembling in hand. Vows flowed like river water. In your light I find my truth. Rings exchanged. Kisses sealed under applause that thundered like redemption. Robert, best man by default, gripped Samuel's hand after, whispering, "Proud, don't cover it. Son." Over the moon. Elias, teary-eyed beside Jamie, squeezed Robert's arm. "Told you truth, mens." Honeymoon echoes lingered through June. Samuel and Alex returning tanned and tangled, settling into a rhythm of shared mornings and midnight musings. Work at the center deepened Robert's days. He'd taken to mentoring one-on-one. A young dad named Mike whose son had come out amid church exile. Echoes of me, Robert confessed to Samuel over coffee one dawn, the pot perking like old times. Told him, love ain't a switch. It's a steady burn. Samuel listened, stirring sugar slow, seeing the man his father was becoming vulnerable. Vast. But summer storms brewed subtle, in the form of a letter from Hargrove, postmarked with regret. Heard about the wedding. It read, script shaky. Church folk talk. Wanted to say, sorry. For the words. For the walls. Robert read it aloud at dinner. Voice even. Then folded it away. Forgive. Elias asked later. The two men rocking on the porch as crickets chorused. Robert sighed. Stars wheeling overhead. Working on it. Like us. Elias nodded. Hand brushing Robert's knee, a gesture old as their youth. Now innocent as starlight. Jamie's teaching me that forgiveness starts inward. Autumn brought harvest fairs. The midway alive with lights and laughter. A far cry from Samuel's shadowed memory. He and Alex manned a booth for the center. Rainbow flags fluttering beside cotton candy stands. Tommy appeared, girlfriend in tow, hugging Samuel tight. Heard the news. Congrats. Man. They swapped numbers. Promises of coffees. Bridges rebuilt over Ferris wheel spins. Robert watched from afar, flipping burgers for volunteers. A smile genuine as he bantered with kids tossing rings. See that? He called to Elias, nodding at Samuel's easy joy. Worth every break. November's chill ushered Thanksgiving. The house swollen with guests, Mike and his son, now chatting shy with Alex, Jamie and Elias, carving turkey with tales from the bay. Robert's toast rang clear, to tables set with truths, and seconds on grace. Laughter followed. Pie plates passed, the warmth a bulwark against encroaching cold. Later, as snow dusted the yard, Samuel found Robert by the fire. Album opened to faded photos, Samuel's baby grins. Mother's arms around them all. Miss her, Robert murmured. She'd love Thysis. Whole. Samuel knelt, head on his father's knee. She does. Watching. Winter holidays twinkled with lights strung across town. Samuel and Alex hosting their first a potluck of pyrgus and poems. Center friends mingling with Alex's artsy crew. Robert arrived with his carvings, gifting each a token, hands linked, hearts etched. For the journeys, he said, voice gruff. Elias and Jamie extended their stay. The cabin in Pennsylvania sold. Proceeds funding a scholarship for queer youth, Elias's path. Ironic and apt. No more cages. Jamie joked, toasting with eggnog. Just open roads. But January tested the seams. A call from the center shattering a quiet morning. Mike's boy, overwhelmed by school taunts, had attempted the unthinkable. Robert raced there, Samuel in tow. Holding the young man's hand as medics worked, whispers of, "It gets better," a lifeline chanted like prayer. In the waiting room, Robert broke. Fists clenched. How many more? Sam. How many I couldn't save? Samuel pulled him close. Alex's steady presence a third pillar. You save by showing up. Like now. Mike arrived. Gratitude fierce in his hug. You gave me words. Rob. For him. Spring renewal came slow. The river thawing with tentative greens. Samuel's first book deal, Ayurveda memoir. Shades of straight. Weaving his story with others. Readings packed cafes. Questions probing deep. What broke you most? Samuel would pause. Eyes finding Robert in the crowd. The hiding. The healing. Love's long haul. Elias. Back east for a visit. Shared stages. His testimony a counterpoint. I fixed nothing. Just faced everything. Jamie's pride beamed. Their ring a quiet vow exchanged in a sunset ceremony the year prior. Summer swelled with pride parades. Youngstown's first a colorful ribbon through mill streets. Rainbows clashing with rust. Robert marched beside Samuel. Sign reading, Proud Dad. Elias and Jamie linking arms behind. Chants rose, Love wins. Echoing off factory walls. A symphony of defiance and delight. That night, bonfire crackled in the yard. Stories circling like sparks, Robert's mill crush. Long buried. Elias's barracks kiss. Reclaimed. Samuel's bleacher spark. Fanned to flame. To the brakes. Alex toasted. That let us breathe. Fall's palette deepened resolve. Samuel's book launch, a town event bookstore overflowing. Lines snaking to the river. Robert emceed. Voice booming pride. This boy's words. They fixed me. Applause thundered. Hugs exchanged. The air electric with shared survival. Elias whispered to Jamie. We're part of this. Jamie kissed his temple. Always were. Winter wrapped them gentle. Holidays a mosaic of traditions, new Hanukkah candles from Alex's family. Advent wreaths from Robert's. Resolutions whispered, more groups. More grants. More grace. As snow fell soft, Samuel traced constellations with Alex. Robert and Elias below debating stars. Look up. Samuel called. See. We're mapped in light. Years layered like sediment. Joys and jars etching depth. Samuel's second book flowered from father-son dialogues. Robert co-authoring chapters raw as ore. Elias and Jamie adopted a teen from the center. Their home a haven of hewn truths. Robert, gray and graceful, found love tentatively a widow from the group. Her acceptance a quiet gift. She's steady, he told Samuel. Eyes twinkling. Like you taught me. In the heart of a decade's turn, Samuel stood at his own father's wedding small. Lakeside, vows echoing his own. To bends in the road. The widow said, ring slipping on. Robert's I do rang true. Elias best man. Jamie officiant. Samuel, with Alex and their toddler niece in arms, felt the circle complete. Breaks had built them stronger. Softer. Soaring. The river's murmur had become Samuel's metronome. Its steady flow a reminder that time didn't heal so much as carve deepening channels for what lay buried to surface. At 25, with a chapbook under his belt and a marriage blooming like the wild asters in their backyard plot, Samuel turned his pen to broader waters, a novel. Tentative outlines sketched in stolen hours between teaching gigs and toddler chases. Alex's studio expanded. Murals commissioned for city halls. Colors bold as their shared dreams. Life in Youngstown felt less like survival. More like settling roots twining through rust into something resilient. Robert, at 50, wore his years like a well-oiled jacket. Flexible where once rigid. His romance with Clara unfolded slow. Picnics by the mill pond where she'd listened to his carvings tales. Her laugh a balm to old wounds. She's got stories too. He'd tell Samuel over Sunday roasts. Pride in his grin. Lost her boy to the war. Understands breaking. Elias and Jamie's adoption of Raleigh, a 16-year-old with wary eyes, and a sketch pad brought them summers in Ohio. The teens' art echoing Alex's in vibrant defiance. Kids got fire, Jamie said, ruffling Riley's hair at barbecues. Like his dad's. Yet beneath the harvest of happiness, undercurrents stirred. A national news piece on ex-gay survivors aired one fall evening. Testimonies raw as open veins. Dredging memories Samuel thought sedimented. He watched with Alex curled close. Robert and Clara across the coffee table. Elias on speaker from the coast. That's me. Samuel breathed as a blurred face recounted hills and hymns. The room thickened. Breaths held. Robert muted the TV. Voice gravel soft. Should have burned that place down. Elias's line crackled. Too late for fire. But words. They're kindling. The call ended with Plancid joint op-ed. Fathers and sons pinning fury into fuel. Winter workshops followed. Samuel facilitating at the center. Voices weaving a chorus of survival. Mike's boy, now thriving in art school, returned as a guest speaker. His sketch of fractured mirrors met with snaps. Broke to reflect true, he said, echoing Samuel's lines. Robert attended faithfully, notebook in hand, jotting phrases for his group. These kids, he murmured after one session. Eyes on Samuel leading. They're the poem I couldn't write. Clara squeezed his hand. Her presence a quiet anchor. Spring's thaw brought controversies bloom. Hargrove's church picketed the center. Signs stark as old judgments, repent or perish. Samuel rallied countervigils. Poetry slams under tents. Words as shields. Robert stood front line. Sign reversed. Love wins even you. Hargrove approached halting. Face creased deeper by time. Rob. Saw the news. Your boy. Robert nodded. No triumph. Our boy. And he's light. Hargrove deflated. Mumbling retreat. Days later. A donation arrived anonymously. But the script matched. Summer pride swelled grander. Floats churning confetti through streets once silent. Samuel emceed. Mike hot in hand. Dedicating the parade to the ones who sent us away and found their way back. Robert marched with Clara. Elias. Jamie. Riley family forged. Flags waving. That night. Bonfire tales turned to futures. Samuel's novel querying agents. Alex's mural tour. Robert's memoir pitch with Clara's edits. What if? Elias mused. Sparks rising. We write the end. Autumn's golds framed a milestone. Samuel's 30th loomed. But first, Riley's high school graduation. The family converging on Pennsylvania for the ceremony. The teen crossed the stage beaming. Diploma clutched like a key. Dinner after buzzed with toasts. To locks picked. Back in Ohio. Samuel's acceptance letter arrived. Novel deal. Advance modest but mighty. Shades unbroken. The title sang. A sequel of sorts to his heart. Winter holidays merged traditions fuller. Clara's lax beside Robert's Pyragus. Riley's beats dropping over carols. Resolutions circled deeper. Samuel vowing daily rites. Robert therapy with Clara for grief's lingering shade. Mother to prove. Samuel said. Snow globed in the yard. Robert pulled him close. She does. And so do I. The decade's cusp brought births and books. Samuel and Alex's son. Born spring fresh. Named Elias Robert, Eli for short. Cries echoing laughter. Robert held him first. Tears salting tiny cheeks. Grandpa's boy. Elias. Visiting. Cradled his namesake. Jamie snapping photos. Full circle. Samuel's novel launched to quiet acclaim. Tours threading cities where readers shared scars. Your words mended. One whispered in Cleveland. Samuel hugged back. Yours too. Storms came Clara's cancer diagnosis. A shadow swift and sharp. The family rallied. Robert's hands carving her a locket of hands linked. Chemo chairs filled with stories. Fight like we did, Samuel urged. She did. Fierce to fall's end. Her passing a quiet harbor. Robert grieved open. Group shares his solace. Lost another light. He told Samuel by her grave. Asters blooming defiant. But she lit the way. Spring's renewal honored her a mural Alex led. Clara's laugh in every stroke. Robert found footing in legacy, endowing a center scholarship in her name. Elias and Jamie's wedding vow renewal drew them all west. Vows renewed under redwoods, broke together. Built forever. Riley, now college-bound, toasted with sketches framed. Summer's heat-baked memories soft. Eli's first steps on mill grass. Robert's laughter booming. Samuel's second novel brewed. Themes of legacies loom. Autumn leaves swirled as Eli turned one. Cake smeared with joy. Winter wrapped gentle. Holidays a hearth of hearts. In time's gentle grind. Samuel at 35 penned a trilogy's close. Robert editing margins with steady hand. Elias and Jamie fostered more. Home a haven. Eli's questions bloomed, why rainbows? Papa. Answered in tales of storms braved. Loves the sun after. Samuel said. Robert nodding beside. One eve. Under harvest moon. The men gathered Samuel. Robert. Elias. Jamie porch rocking in sync. Broke us. Robert mused. But look whole. Glasses clinked to truths timeless. Stars winking approval. The river sang on. Carving ever deeper. Ever true. Dawn's light filtered through the lace curtains of the riverside home. Samuel and Alex had bought a fixer-upper with creaking floors and views of the Mahoning's Bend, where water whispered wisdom to willows. Eli, at 3, toddled through mornings chasing dust motes. His giggles a melody that mended any fray. Samuel, 30, balanced fatherhood with faculty life at the community college. Lectures on narrative arcs laced with personal arc, students leaning in. Notebooks filling with not just notes, but nods of recognition. Stories safe. He'd end classes. And they did. His own etched in the novel that now lined shelves from Pittsburgh to Portland. Robert, pushing 60, had traded garage tinkering for community theater. Clara's love of plays a spark he'd fanned into flame. His role in the local production of Angels in America was smell a weary father grappling with ghosts, but rehearsals filled him with a fire he'd thought banked. Never knew I had lines like these, he told Samuel after a run-through. Script creased in pocket. Elias and Jamie, with Riley off at art school in Chicago, had opened a coastal cafe, Truth Brew. Coffee and conversation for wanderers. Visits brought lavender lattes and updates, Riley's gallery show. A series on fractured families that sold out. Yet midlife's currents tugged subtle. Pulling it seems long-stitched. Samuel felt it first in quiet hours. Eli napping. Alex sketching in the studio, restlessness. Not regret, but reckoning. What if Eli faces what I did? He confided to Robert over lunch at the diner. Forks chasing eggs. Robert paused. Coffee steaming like thoughts. Then he'll have us. Unbroken voices. But the words hung heavy. Samuel's mind drifting to national headlines. Conversion camps shuddered. But echoes in schools. Churches clinging to creeds cracked by time. Summer's swelter amplified unease. A heat wave coinciding with Eli's preschool enrollment. The open house brimmed with parents. But whispers followed Samuel, old mill ties. Knowing glances. One mom approached. Smile tight. Your book's brave. My boys. Questioning. Samuel shared resources. Heart aching at her fear. It's a journey, he said. Ours was stormy. His can be sunlit. Robert. Picking up Eli later. Overheard similar at the park dads clustering. Voices low. Heard Rob's grandkids folks. You know. Robert's retort was quiet thunder. No fistery loved. Full stop. Fall foliage framed a family retreat to the Poconos. Cabins rented where hills once held Elias's retreat. Laughter echoed hikes. Eli's tiny boots splashing creeks. But evenings by the fire turned reflective. Remember this air? Elias asked Robert. Marshmallows toasting golden. Robert nodded. Embers mirroring eyes. Cage then. Kin now. Jamie shared cafe tales of patrons coming out sparked by Samuel's book. Coffee spilled in catharsis. Ripples. He said. Samuel. Eli asleep on his chest. Felt them, waves from one boy's exile touching shores unseen. Winter's hush brought holidays amplified Eli's wonder at lights. Robert's plays rapping with standing ovations. But January chilled deeper, a letter from Tommy. Now a teacher in Cleveland. Enclosing a photo of his wedding to his husband. You started it. The note read. Thanks for the courage. Samuel framed it. But the gift stirred sediment his own youth's what-ifs. Tommy's hand in memories missed. Alex noticed. Pulling him close that night. Past a teacher. Not a tether. Samuel nodded. But dreams wove alternate threads, bleachers empty. Kisses unclaimed. Spring's bloom coincided with controversy's thorn. The college invited a traditional values speaker. Campus buzzing with protest plans. Samuel organized panels. His voice in the campus paper, dialogue. Not division. Robert attended the talk. Clara's pin on his lapilla dove for peace sitting front row. Questions prepared. How's values square with kids lost to shame? He asked. Steady. The speaker faltered. Debate sparking. After. Students swarmed Robert. You're the dad from the book. He grinned. Humble. Just a guy learning lines. Summer Pride evolved into a festival. Stages hosting slams where Eli, flower-crowned, danced to beats. Samuel read from his sequel out linea, Father's Redemption, Arcan. The crowd roared. Elias and Jamie flew in. Cafe Prophets sponsoring a youth booth. Riley debuted pieces. Canvases of hands reaching through storms. For the breaks. The artist said. Hugging Samuel. That night. Bonfire confessions circled. Robert admitting stage fright masked deeper fear off fading relevance. Claire'd say act anyway. Elias shared Jamie's health scare. A minor wave, but reminder. Hold tighter. Autumn's harvest yielded Samuel's second book deal. Echoes of Exile. Weaving Robert's voice into verse novel hybrid. Tours loomed. Eli's first without him a pang. Papa Goes Tell Stories. Alex coached. But drop-off tears mirrored Samuel's own. Robert stepped in. Granddad duties a delight park adventures. Carving lessons. He's got your spark. Robert reported nightly calls. And my stubborn. Winter-wrapped tours in snow-dusted cities. Readings met with embraces from exiles old and new. One night in Chicago, Riley hosted a launch event. Gallery walls alive with illustrations. Uncle Sam's words. My lines. The teen beamed. Back home. Holidays healed separations. Eli's cookie chaos. Robert's Yolog play acted with flair. Resolutions rooted. Family therapy sessions. Mending midlife's minor mars. The year's turn brought Eli's fourth birthday. A river picnic where cake floated on lily pads. Samuel watched his son splash. Robert tossing a ball. Elias video calling with Jamie's grin. Full. Samuel breathed to Alex. She kissed his temple. And flowing. Storms past gentle after-school bullies, slur met with Robert's principal chat. Calm as steel. My grandson's loved. Teach that. Change followed. Curriculum softened. Samuel's book released to acclaim. Podcasts probing. How'd father and son co-write truth? Robert's reply, by listening late. Decades depth deepened Bonzili's questions evolving to why Grandpa's church changed. Robert's answer. Over cocoa, grew up. Like trees. Elias and Jamie's cafe expanded. A franchise for safe spaces. Riley's exhibit toured. Fractured light. In quiet eaves. Samuel penned epilogues. Robert edited. Elias advised. One autumn dusk. Under leaves like confetti. Eli asked. Papa, were you ever lost? Samuel knelt. Eyes level. Once. Found by love's map. Robert ruffled his hair. Hours. Time's river ran on. Carving canyons of Care Samuel's tenure track. Alex's gallery. Robert's encore in fences. Elias's memoirs brewing. Eli's laughter bridged. A boy unbroken. Bearing torches lit by breaks long mended. The world turned. But their circle held Trutha's quiet triumph. Echoing eternal. The acorn's fall marked midsummer's pivot. A soft thud in the yard where Eli now raced kites. His 5-year-old legs a blur against the sky's vast blue. Samuel, at 32, had settled into professorships, rhythm office hours spilling into mentorships. Young writers unspooling closets in his care. Your scars teach. A student confided once. Notebook clutched like armor. Samuel nodded, remembering his own ink-stained confessions. Alex's murals graced state capitals now. Commissions calling her to Harrisburg. Leaving Samuel and Eli in domestic duet pancake symphonies and bedtime sonnets. Robert, 62, directed his first Playa local take on The Laramie Project, casting mill voices in roles of witness and wound. Rehearsals hummed in community halls. His clipboard a scepter of second acts. Clarid direct the ghosts away. He'd joke to Samuel post-run, but his eyes held her light. Elias and Jamie's Truth Brew, chain-dotted coasts. Each cafe a confessional baristas trained in listening. Walls hung with Riley's touring art. The young artist, 22 now, had landed a residency in New York. Pieces probing identity's prism. Proud uncles. Jamie texted photos. Elias's arm around him in frame. Yet autumn's approach carried whispers of where Robert's knee. Arthritic from mill days. Flaring in rehearsals. Samuel's novel 3. Stalled at chapter 5. Doubts dogging drafts. What if I've said it all? He voiced to Alex over wine. Eli asleep upstairs. She traced his jaw. Then say it new. For him. Eli's curiosity sharpened daily. Papa. Why rainbows fight? Prompting family lore sessions. Robert's gravel tales of Grandpa's long road, simplified to fables of bridges built. Fall's Festival of Leaves framed the play's premiere. House packed with townsfolk. Hargrove in a back row. Nodding silent. Samuel sat front with Eli on lap. Alex's hand in his. Heart swelling as Robert cued lights. Lines landed like truths unearthed. We mourn what we fear. Applause thundered. Curtain calls pulling Robert center. Tears carving tracks. Backstage. Hugs fierce. Elias calling congratulations. Voice thick. You nailed the redemption. Robert wiped eyes. Just lived it. Winter's woolen hush brought holidays layered richer. Eli's school pageant. A shepherd in tinsel halo. Robert filming proud. But January's gale howled grief's echo. Mike's passing. Heart attack swift at 55. His boy now a graphic designer flying and shattered. The funeral swelled the center. Eulogies weaving Mike's arc from denial to embrace. He learned from you. Rob. The son said. Gripping hands. Robert nodded. Voice breaking. And I from him. Samuel spoke too. Words a bridge, lives linked mend us all. Spring's sap rose resilient. Eli's kindergarten tales of rainbow friends a daily delight. Samuel's breakthrough came poolside. Novel flowing as Eli splashed chapters of grandfather's guiding ghosts. Tours beckoned summer. But family anchored, Robert guest directing a youth theater camp. Elias and Jamie hosting a cafe retreat for center alums. Riley's residency yielded a mural for MoMA echo chambers. Hands shattering glass to reveal hearts. Storm clouds gathered July. National bans on queer lit in schools rippling to Ohio shelves. Samuel's books pulled from libraries. Protests igniting. He rallied authors. Op-eds firing. Silent stories. Silent souls. Robert joined pickets. Sign bold. Grandkids read free. Coverage swelled. A CNN spot interviewing father-son duo Roberts. I banned my own boy once. Won't let ink be banned. Views viral. Donations flooding the center. August heat baked resolve. Eli's questions piercing. Why take Papa's books? Samuel knelt. Honest as dawn. Fear. But we fight with love. Back to school nights doubled as reads. Samuel voice-threading tales in classrooms. Alex's capital Murala River of hands unveiled amid cheers. Eli cutting ribbon tiny. Fall's palette painted prides, evolution a youth summit Samuel keynote. Robert facilitating parent tracks. Elias flew in. Keynote on cafes as confessions. Jamie and Riley paneled arts activism. Sketches live. Eli. Flower and hair. Presented a drawing. Family river. Applause enveloped. Samuel tearing up. Winter rap tours and tinsel Samuel's novel 3 launching to band's backlash buzz. Sales soaring defiant. Holidays haloed Eli's wonder. Robert's directorial award a local honor, lifetime bridge builder. Elias and Jamie's expansion hit 10 cafes. A documentary brewing on their brew. But March's thaw unearthed Old Earth, a box from Elias's attic. Shipped post-residency CLE route letters yellowed. Jamie's handwriting faded. Burned most. Elias confessed over video. Box open. These. Keepers. Samuel read aloud to Robert. Words of barracks longing. Church cages. Echoes. Robert murmured. Glad we drowned him. Spring's renewal birthed Eli's Siblinga daughter. Born April Fools. Named Clara Rose Rosie. Her cry arose unfolding. Robert held her second. Legacy in arms. Clara'd melt. He whispered. Elias cooed virtual. Jamie planning visits. Riley sent a cradle sketch. Art for new arcs. Summer's symphony swelled Rosie's baptism a blend of rivers and rainbows. Robert officiant uncle. Samuel's tenure granted. Classes on narrative as resistance. Bans waned under pressure. Books reshelved with stickers, stories endure. Autumn's harvest reaped Robert's memoir soul, Iron Hands. Open Hearts. Ghosted by Samuel. Launching with Clara's Forward from Beyond. Tours tandem. Father-son readings electric. Elias's doc premiered at Sundance Proxy. Cafes as co-stars. Winters White's whispered Eli's school play a queer fairy tale. Robert directing. Rosie gurgled backstage. Family full. Holidays hummed Harmony's Rosie's first laugh. Robert's knee scoped, but spirit soaring. Time's tapestry threaded on Samuel's quartet novel. Alex's biennial. Robert's theater troupe. Elias and Jamie's foster son. A teen artist like Riley. Rosie babbled Papa. Eli taught rhymes. One eve. Under Aurora Rare. Robert raised glass to bends that bind. Echoes affirmed, unbreakable. Blooming. Twilight's hush settled over the river house like a well-worn quilt. Fireflies winking Morse code of contentment as Eli. 7. Balanced on the dock's edge. Fishing pole a wizard's wand. Rosie, 3, toddled after with netted dreams of minnows. Her curls a halo in the gloam. Samuel, 34, watch from the Adirondack. Notebook open to Novel 4's Fever, a generational saga. Threads from Robert's mill yarns to Eli's queries. Alex grilled corn nearby. Smoke curling stories of her latest commission, a national monument to queer elders. Hands carved in bronze. Robert, 64, captained the family boat, now weekly suppers his helm. Clara's recipes revived with flair. His theater troupe toured small towns. Mill Ghosts, a hit blending local lore with love's labors. Crowds cry. He'd report to Samuel. Eyes alight. Elias and Jamie's empire hummed 13 cafes strong. Their foster teen, Kai, apprenticing barristuary smiles blooming into bold brews. Riley's MoMA acclaim led to professorship at RISD. Mentoring Midwest visits laced with lectures. Yet summer's solstice stirred sediments. A heat lightning storm cracking the sky one July night. Power out. Family huddled by lantern. Eli's ghost stories veering to why grandpas play sad. Robert paused. Poker paused. Sats were strong starts. Kid. Samuel elaborated later. Bedtime lore of hills and hidden hearts. Dreams that night wove unrest, Samuel startling awake. Pulse racing from visions of retreats reborn. Bands biting back. August dog days dawned a diagnosis. Robert's checkup yielding early shadows, prostate whispers. Treatable but tenacious. Like me. He joked over diner eggs. Samuel pale. Stubborn. Consults cascaded. Samuel canceling tours. Alex rearranging easel. Elias flew immediate. Jamie holding cafes. We've danced this. Robert said in the waiting room. Hand on Samuel's. Step together. Surgery scheduled fall. Rehearsals pause, troupe rallying with understudies. Break a leg. Boss yours or not. Fall's finery framed the blade's edge. Leaves ablaze as Robert prepped Clara's locket, his talisman. Eli drawing super grandpa cards. Samuel's novel stalled. Words warring with worry. But family fortified. Rosie's preschool songs. Alex's sketches of healing hands. Elias stayed weeks. Cafe video calls his vigil. Kai's get well brew shipped. Riley drove down. Art therapy sessions, impromptu carcools coaxing fears. Surgery day dawned mist-mantled. Samuel pacing halls. Eli and Rosie with Alex at home. Video links live. Hours stretched elastic. Then release clean margins. Docs nodding, good fight. Recovery room reunion, Robert groggy. Grinning. Told Yaron. Hugs silent. Tears salt. Autumn deep and healing. Robert's walk slow but sure. Troupe resuming with his cameos. Samuel recommenced writing. Chapters channeling catharsis, Grandpa's ghost a guardian. Holidays haloed hope. Eli's 8th birthday boat bash. Robert captaining steady. Rosie splashing glee. Elias's doc sequel filmed. Robert's recovery reel raw. Winter's whites whispered resilience. Robert's follow-ups flawless. Samuel's novel 4 flowed. Title Veins of Valor. Tours tentative. Family first. Kai visited. Teen tales tumbling foster fears to family finds. Riley's wedding to a sculptor drew all east. Rhode Island spring a vow of vines and visions. Storm's shadow passed gently, a school board challenge to Alex's monument. Petitions pouring. Samuel penned op-eds. Robert testified town halls. Hands hold history. Don't hide him. Victory verdant. Bronze rising resilient. Summer's surge brought Eli's baptism river right. Robert's words water warm. To depths dived. Surfaces soared. Rosie scattered petals. Family chorus. Samuel's book launched lakeside. Readings rippling. Elias and Jamie adopted Kai official. Papers, petals, and cake. Fall's festival yielded Roberts full return directing Rent Redux. Mill voices and measure. Premiere packed. Eli front row. Rosie dancing aisles. Post-show. Robert to Samuel, your words in my walk. Samuel hugged. Hours. Winter wrapped, tours triumphant. Novel accolades stacking. Holidays hummed rosies for candles. Eli's poetry prize. Kai's barista badge. Riley's baby bump announced. Spring's symphony swelled Rosie's kindergarten. Eli's scout camp Robert den leader. Badges for bravery. Samuel's tenure chair. Alex's monument unveiling, hands eternal. Clara's among. Summer pride paraded progeny Eli marching with sign, loves my compass. Rosie waving flags. Robert emceed elder honors. Elias keynoting youth. Jamie and Kai DJ'd. Riley sketched live. Autumn's arc bent bountiful Roberts play Emmy nod local. Troop touring state. Samuel's quintet novel brewing. Generational ghosts guiding. Winter's hush heralded Eli's 10. Decade marked with decades mince letters from survivors. Your story scaffold mine. Time's tide turned tender. Samuel at 36 penning prequels with Robert's recall. Elias's Empire 18. Kai college bound. Rosie rhymed riddles. Family full. One harvest eve. Dockside. Robert raised lantern. Shadows schooled us. Echoes eternal, veined with valor. Voices victorious. The equinox's balance tipped toward longer lights. Dawn gilding the river a molten ribbon as Samuel. 36. Laced trail shoes for the annual hike family tradition now. Eli 10 and sure-footed. Rosie 6 with pigtails bouncing. Alex mapping wildflowers. Robert. 66. Led with knee brace but spirit unbowed. His carved staff a scepter of stories. Remember the hills. He'd say it overlooks. Voice carrying over wind. Samuel nodded. Novel 5's outline and pack a tapestry of time's turns. From foxholes to family fires. Elias and Jamie's cafes crested 20. A cookbook crowning brewed truths. Recipes laced with resilience rights. Kai. 19. Barista boss in training. Visited with sketches aping Riley's the Prof's twins do fall. Art dynasty dawning. Robert's troop barnstormed borders. Iron echoes a Broadway whisper. Scout sniffing. Clarid cue the curtain. He quipped to scouts. But rehearsals hummed home. Yet vernal vigor veiled vulnerabilities Eli's school taught. A slur scrawled on locker. Surfacing spring break. Fag's kid. The note sneered. Samuel's heart clenched. Echoing old bleachers. Who? Robert growled over dinner. Fork fierce. Eli shrugged brave. Doesn't matter. I got Papa's book. But nights. Samuel held him close. Alex advocating assemblies. Robert rallied PDA. Voice veteran. Taught my boy wrong once. Won't teachers hate? Changed charted counselor hires. Curriculum colors. Summer's blaze baked breakthroughs. Eli's taunter apologizing mediated. Bridge built in board game nights. Samuel's novel 5 flowed, fear deep. Chapters charting Eli's arc. Tours threaded tents. Readings under stars. Elias hosted book cafe stops. Jamie's playlist pulsing. Riley's twins arrived August. Boy and girl forge and flame. Names nodding forges past. False fanfare framed Robert's Molestona 65 no. Wait. 66 play premiere. House heaving. Eli stage managed mini. Rosie props princess. Post curtain. Ovations owned. Robert bowing to brood. Families the cast. Winters we've warmed with weddings Riley's Rhode Island renewal. Twins flower girls. Samuel best man uncle. Words weaving. Art's our armor. Kai proposed to college love. Rings river blessed. Storm skim touched Springa cafe protest. Zealots picketing Sodom sips. Elias faced front. Mike Mighty, brew love. Not lies. National news nodded. Boycotts boomerang to booms. Samuel pinned solidarity. Robert rallied rallies. Summer Pride peaked progeny Eli, emceeing junior stage. Rosie Rainbow face paint fierce. Robert honored elder icon. Elias youth grant giver. Alex's monument tour. Hands touching hearts. Autumn's abundance yielded Samuel's book launch, Rivers Run True. Eli illustrator. Tour's title. Robert co-reading chapters. Elias's Doc Oscar buzz. Cafe screening. Winter's Whites whispered Eli's 12. Bar mitzvah blend Alex's roots. Robert's rabbi friend. Vows vowed. Min the world. Rosie recited rhymes. Kai DJ'd. Times tapestry tightened Samuel's chair sabbatical. Novel succeeding. Robert's Broadway break. Iron Echoes off tryout. Elias Empire 25. Jamie's memoir brewing. One solstice supper. Lantern lit. Rosie asked. Nana Clara watch. Robert smiled soft. Every scene. Eli added. And forgives the flops. Laughter linked. Legacies luminous. Decades danced on. Samuel 40. Eli teen towering. Rosie rhapsodizing recitals. Robert 70. Directing dreams undimmed. Elias and Jamie grandpas to Kai's kids. Cafe's community cores. Riley's dynasty. Art echoing. In Elder Eves. Samuel scribed sagas with Robert's recall. Elias advising arcs. One River Rendezvous. Under Equinox Equal. Robert raised glass. Broke to boundless. Echoes embraced. Eternal. Ever.